Hello my loves, and welcome back to another Heart-Centered Heels class. Today we are going to be learning 10 ways to level up our dancing in a heel, okay? So you babes are coming into this membership as intermediate dancers. You're really ready to take the next step with your dancing, and that doesn't always just mean doing harder choreo and training more. Sometimes it does, but sometimes it also just means making tiny little adjustments. I might have even said these things in previous videos, but now it's something that you can actually consistently start working on. So my recommendation for you is to take this class and then choose one of these specific things that you're going to work on for your next dance class here in the membership or in our live classes. I want you to pick one thing to focus on and see how much that one tiny shift can change your entire dancing, how it looks, how it feels. I really want you to start feeling even more confident in your dancing, more confident in your choreo and your technique, and these tips are going to help you to do that, okay? So if you're ready, go ahead, grab some heels. This will be a quick little tutorial for you, but I really want you to start focusing on applying these things and actually seeing the changes happen in your dancing and in your level of dancing. All right, my love, so the first thing we are going to talk about is face, face, face. You babes hear me say this all the time if you've taken my classes, but our face is just as important as what our body is doing. Because if our body's looking like super sexy and our face is like, you know, it's not gonna translate, it's not gonna look the way that we want it to. Also, the biggest thing that I see as a common mistake that dancers make, and I've seen this in my own dancing as well in the past, is that we get so caught up in everything that's going on in our bodies that it reflects on our face. What reflects on our face is that we're overthinking, is that we are trying to remember the choreo, and we are not actually connected to the character, to the energy of the dance. We're just moving, but there's a disconnect between what's happening here and what's happening in our body. So let's do a few exercises just so you can start to see how your face changes when you do different characters or different styles or different energies of dancing, okay? And then you can really see this when you look in the mirror, when you practice it with a mirror in front of you. You can start to see how your face shifts and changes. So the first character I'm going to give us is a really intense dominatrix badass, okay? So this energy, you know what I'm talking about. You've got your whip, you've got your like all black on, the vibe, okay? So here what I would do is I would kind of give my eyes a little bit of a squint, because I just feel like squint is very like seductress energy. My mouth would be completely closed. Yes, the mouth changes everything. If your lips are slightly parted, or if your mouth kind of goes from like open to close, open to close, open to close, it looks like you don't know what's going on. And I know this because I remember when I was like, oh, maybe I should close my mouth in one of my dance classes that I had taken, and I watched my video back. I was like, what if I closed my mouth and did that same routine? And it was very like intense. And instead of having my mouth slightly open, I just kept it pretty closed the whole time, and it changed the vibe, okay? So put on your dominatrix, your seductress energy. Yes. Play around with your arms. Yes, and also something that you can do as well, the tilt of the head, the tilt of the chin. So if I'm giving the seductress energy, my eyes are a little bit squinted, yeah, and my lips are closed, yes, and then I tilt my chin down a little bit, boom, she knows what's up, okay? If it's up here, nice. If it's down here, nice. If it's just in the middle, it's fine. But if you play with those levels, like, I'm looking down. Now I'm looking up, and I think I'm like above you. I've got presence, yeah? Because especially in burlesque, it's all about that communication between you and the audience. So whatever you're doing here is giving your audience a direct representation of what's going on in this dance, okay? So one more time, seductress, dominatrix energy. Eyes squinted, lips closed, chin tilted down, chin tilted up. Maybe you look over the shoulder like, whatever. Yeah, okay, that's the energy. So those three things you can play with for that specific character: eyes, mouth, chin, and it's gonna give you an incredibly different energy than, let's say, our sassy, spunky, shimmy-y, in-your-face burlesque dancer, okay? Or heels dancer. This goes for both heels and burlesque, but I'm kind of focusing a little bit more on burlesque just because it is so characterized. So when it comes to a spunky, sassy, burlesque energy that's very much like cheeky and fun, you want to have a completely different view, but all the elements are the same. So my eyes again are communicating, but instead of my eyes being squinty, my eyes are very much like open and alive and bright. Yeah? We say so much in our emotions through our eyes. My husband tells me this all the time, that he can know exactly what I'm thinking through the eyes, and you should be communicating this throughout your entire performance, okay? So my eyes are very bright. My chin is definitely like lifted and playful, and I have this really like upright presence about me instead of this kind of crouched, domineering energy. I have a very lifted perspective, and also, even though my mouth is mostly closed, I can give like a little grin, a little smile. I'm just barely lifting the corners of my mouth, but I'm not like, you know, there's a difference. It's more like subtle. Also, the way that you use your eyes when it comes to this character is so important. So let's say you look down and then you look up over your shoulder, down and up. You give a little wink, you know, that kind of thing. That is so playful. And even if you're just like boom, boom, and then you have a little shimmy. Yeah, see how I lifted my chin? I'm like playing with the audience. It's the same thing. Or if I did like a little kick and looked over my shoulder and I looked down and up. Yeah, and then I gave the booty like a little pat. Those things are so much more playful and powerful if you're using your eyes and if you're using the lift and the drop of the chin. And especially this really cute, sexy, kind of coy smile. Yeah. And then if it gets bigger and brighter and you are shimmying and it's very playful, I always like to do like a little open and close with the mouth. It's not open the whole time. It's very much like a ha moment, and then I'm back to this same kind of even keel with my mouth. Because one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make with their facial expressions is too much, yeah? So then they go the opposite direction and it's like ha, ta, ba. Yeah, and it's like so much going on with their face, and I really want you to think about giving like those subtle moments and then having this baseline of performance for each separate character. So again, for this bubbly, kind of sparkly vibe, we have the eyes that are really open and bright. We have the lift of the lips and of the mouth, and then we have like little moments where we can tilt the head, where we can drop the head back. Yeah, so that little lift is very cute and sexy. And then we also have the subtle like opening, but it's very quick, like bah. Yeah. And then the final expression of energy that we really kind of have a lot in burlesque and in heels is this more like sensual, slow, just kind of chill vibe. And I think it's just as important to go over this as the other two, because it is a little bit more subtle, but it's just as important, okay? So there are a few keys to this, but the number one key, of course, is the eyes, because your eyes say so much. Yeah, so even though the eyes are very subtle, it's like you give little looks. Yeah, you're definitely like a come hither vibe. It's not intense, it's not too flirty, it's like very subtle, like if you were looking at someone across the bar, kind of subtle, okay? So your eyes are just very natural and very flirty, but not too intense one way or the other. My lips are very natural. If I want to give like a little bit of a smile or smize rather, then I can, but it's more maintaining that closed lip. I do purse my lips a little bit in moments. Yeah, and it's very just like sexy and casual, okay? So your eyes are very casual, your lips are very casual. Again, my mouth is like not open at all really for this energy. And then I'm using the breath. So it's a little bit different than the other ones that we did. So let's say I'm just like touching my body and my hips are swiveling and I'm just kind of feeling my body. I am taking the biggest breaths in and out. And not only is that going to make you look way more relaxed, but it's also going to give you this like light energy as you're doing whatever you're doing, and as you're moving, it's like, oh, there's like an ease about this. You can see the relaxation on your face and it will translate into the rest of your body, okay? So really subtle, flirty eyes, closed, kind of pursed lips, and using that breath, okay, for this more really sultry, slow, divine feminine vibe. All right, my love, so that is all about the face. Now my second tip for you is going to be about the arms and the hands, okay? So many times I see in my students dancing that they will either go one extreme or the other when it comes to energetics in the hands and in the arms. So a lot of people have this kind of like noodly energy, okay? So their arms are just very loosey-goosey. So let's say I was like dropping, I was doing some hip rolls, I was like body rolling. It's just like loose, yeah? So what we want to do is we want to start to put intention in the arms and in the fingertips without it being like straight, 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 straight. Like that's not cute either. We want it to be this like kind of combination between relaxed and floaty, but also engaged, okay? And when I'm talking about engaged, I'm talking about my back muscles. And what I'm doing is I'm rolling the shoulder blades down. So we've got our classic posture position, but my back and my shoulders are engaged, yeah? So I can take the arm up, and even though I'm being really light with it, it looks intentional. Versus if my arms are not engaged, and I take the arm up, it's like, oh. But if they're engaged, it's like, yes. And then I make sure that my hands and my fingertips are intentional as well. So let's just take the hands up, and drop them down. Good, take them up. Drop them down. One more time, take them up. Drop them down. Yes. So as you can see, and you'll feel it if your back muscles are engaged, it feels connected, right? If you're just like touching your body in a way that's disconnected, it comes through. But if you're touching your body with intention, if you have these beautiful wide fingertips, we talk about this a lot in my classes, but I really have energy going through my fingertips constantly. So when I scoop the booty, my hand is really, really wide, and my fingertips have energy. They're almost kind of lifted off of my thighs. If I came down and I touched my knees, you see how wide my fingertips are? Same thing if I did a booty scoop, my fingertips are so wide. If I'm feeling up my body, I'm actually feeling it with my fingertips. I'm not just like, you know, I'm really like touching myself, and I'm feeling how good it feels to touch myself in this way versus it being something that's uncomfortable. So 2 keys to your arms is going to be engaging your back, engaging your muscles, yes, keeping that posture maintained, and then having energy through the fingertips. So anytime you do anything with your arms, there should be this connection. Even if we are like letting the arms kind of float down, my back is still engaged. Yes, it's not just like, whoop. It's really, again, those deep breaths bring so much life to our movements, okay? So that is all about really maintaining these beautiful lines, these beautiful shapes, and it not feeling too like in your face, and it also not feeling too just kind of like weak. Because a lot of people can watch burlesque and be like, oh, like it's not really that interesting. And burlesque is one of those styles of dance that if you're not incorporating the energetic piece of it, which is what I'm talking about right now with the arms, and you're not connected, and also you're not connected to the character like we talked about with the facial expressions, it looks kind of boring. So I want you babes to have the most beautiful, radiant performances, even if it's just in your home. And I want you to feel like when you watch yourself back that these little adjustments are making such a huge difference, because they do. You can watch someone do the same choreo, but if their body is engaged, like I'm talking about right now, or if their faces are connected to the camera and to the audience, completely different vibe. The third tip that I have for you babes is balance. Now this is definitely taking it back to our foundations, but balancing in our heels will always be the hardest thing about dancing in a heel. And especially as you start to level up from maybe like a booty to a stiletto, the balance piece is going to be even more important. So let's just go over it, okay? So one of the things that I really want to make sure that we're doing when it comes to balance is, first of all, our posture. If our posture is kind of like collapsed, we're starting off on a bad foot, okay? And so I want to make sure that we start thinking about balance with the posture. Shoulders roll back. We have a little slight arch in the spine. Core is still engaged, and I'm lifted up, okay? The second tip for balance, otherwise, keeping your core maintained and pelvis engaged, which is just a given, is our legs. Our legs are the biggest part of our body that are keeping us connected to the floor. So if our core is engaged, but our legs are just kind of like not, we're gonna end up falling, especially in these hair whips and stuff like that, where we're taking the body down to come up, you're gonna fall forward, okay? So the legs being engaged, whether it's in our walks and the legs are squeezing as I come through my bevel, squeeze as I come through my bevel, or again, whether it's in these hair whips, where I'm putting all of my weight into that booty cheek and I'm making sure that I'm pushing the booty back, that I'm not leaning forward into my toes. I'm always balanced in my heels, or I'm always pushing to the back of my heels, okay? That way when I come down to come up, boom, I don't move at all, okay? And that's exactly what we want in our heels. If we're taking the body forward, I'm pushing all of my weight into the back of my legs, okay? I'm not thinking about anything else other than keeping my legs really strong. And also that has to do with your connection to the floor. And I love talking about this because this is something that I learned in ballroom. It's a concept called tracking. So when we are walking in our heels, I'm using the toe of my foot to press into the earth. I'm using the toe of my foot to press into the earth. Okay, so instead of just thinking, okay, I'm going through my bevel, I'm going through my bevel, it's like I'm going through my bevel and I'm literally painting a line with my toe across. And then I come through, I squeeze my thighs across. My toe is constantly, this inside edge of my foot is constantly pushing. It's constantly keeping me grounded. So even in these moments where we're not like walking and stuff, I'm thinking about how all 5 of my little toes are just pressing down into the earth. And that way I'm constantly feeling rooted and grounded versus lifted and kind of up. Because when we feel that lifted energy, when we feel really like up and out of ourselves and out of our bodies, that's when we're gonna fall. So the keys to our balance, our core, pelvis engaged, shoulders rolled back, and posture. We have the squeeze in our legs, the squeeze in our booties, and we have the drag of the toes. Yes, so really using our toes, using all 5 points to ground into the earth and making sure we are keeping our weight equally distributed unless we are, you know, sitting into the heel, into the booty, and that kind of thing. We want to make sure we're leaning more towards the back. But it's all very connected. You want to make sure that, especially if you're working on balance, you don't see it as just like one piece of your body. You really see it as everything has to be working together in order to feel really stable. So my 4th tip for you babes is getting really comfortable and confident in your grooves and in your natural movements. So a groove is going to be something like a hip roll, like a swivel, like where you're just kind of bopping from side to side and you're just feeling really good, kind of in those moments where we're about to start dancing, or there might be some in the middle of the routine. I know the routine that I posted for you babes this last week is full of grooves, and I want to go over this because we are, as women, usually overthinkers, and so we're trying to analyze everything. So when we're talking about a hip roll, it's like, okay, how does my hips get from point A to point B? Whereas we should just be thinking, how does this feel in my body? So just do some hip rolls with me, really naturally. Yeah, maybe you rock from side to side with your hips. Yes, just feeling really loose and really good. Maybe we go into a little swivel. Yeah, all of these things, yes, there's some technique behind them, but it's more about the feeling. And it's more about, are we releasing into it, or are we letting our body like lock up and tense up because we want to do it right? And I think that keeps us from being amazing dancers sometimes. Instead of just feeling it, we're trying to like analyze, you know what I mean? So when we're talking about grooves, especially like I taught a burlesque class recently and we did these little side to side hip rolls. Yeah, I really wanted everyone to just like release into it and kind of have fun with it. And everybody was like, okay, how many times am I circling my hips? Like, how am I going from side to side? And that was totally not the point. I wanted it to be a moment where we were just feeling our bodies. So the only way that this is going to feel better for you is to practice it. And I'm telling you, put on some music in the morning and practice your hip circles. Hip circles. Hip circles. Yes, I'm using my chest, I'm using my hips, I'm using the bend in my knees to circle, and then I go the other way. Yes, and then if we're doing just hip rolls, yeah, just taking the hands up the body. This is a groove. This is just a moment to feel good in your body. Don't think so much about it. If we're doing a swivel, it's the same thing. I'm just letting my hips rock from side to side as I bend my knees. That's all that's happening. But we get in our head and we're just like, oh, how does this look? You know, all the things. And it's actually just the more you relax your body, just go like this, relax it all out. The more you relax, the more those things are gonna look the way that you want them to. So I want you babes to practice just doing little hip swivels from side to side. So pushing the hips out and out, taking the hands up the body, up the body, up the body. I want you to do little hip dips from side to side. Yeah, just getting used to bending into the knees, hipping from side to side. And then I want you to practice swiveling, but take the thought out of it. Just rock from side to side. And the more that you do it, the more that you'll be like, oh, actually this feels better. Actually, it feels better to lift my heels or whatever it is. You'll find your groove with it. And then also with these little hip circles around with twerking as well. So if we were like doing like a little twerk sesh, you know, I'm not thinking about it at all. I'm just kind of living in my body, popping the booty, doing whatever I want to do, and it's not about the technique or how it looks. So this tip is really more just an encouragement to practice grooving at home. Practice putting on some music, bopping around, see how your body wants to move. The freestyle element is something that I really want us to continue diving into, because when you realize how your body wants to move, it'll create those motions. Like it will. I remember when I was learning how to swivel, I had no idea what I was doing. So I just started like rocking from side to side in the mirror, and then I started bending my knees, and then it just happened, okay? So practice your hip rolls, practice your twerks, practice your swivels, practice like just moving and grooving to the music, and you're gonna start to feel so much more comfortable when it comes to the choreography. Okay, so my next tip is no secret. Everyone gets so sick of me saying this, but point your motherfucking toes, babies, okay? We wanna make sure that anytime that we're wearing a heel, that we are pointing the toes, okay? So a couple places that I notice most frequently is going to be in like a little scoop and drop. I see so many people hiking up that heel and just popping it up with this little cowboy boot. And we wanna make sure we're pointing the toes and down. Yes, if we're doing a turn, we point the toes down, okay? So try this with me. We're going to do a little scoop, step, look, okay? We go 5, 6, 7, 8, scoop, step, look. Yes, okay? If we were doing a turn, if we were doing just a little step, pivot, turn, step, okay? So we step on the foot, going on the right foot, I'm turning, and I'm dropping the foot. Yes, anytime I'm turning at all, whether it's like a spiral turn, my toe is pointed, or whether it's a step, turn, drop, my toe is pointed, okay? Another place I see this all the time is on the floor. Yes, so when our feet are up in the air, it is so easy to go like this. Make sure that we are constantly pointing the toes. Even when we are swooping and scooping, if we are shimmying the legs out and in, we want to make sure that we're pointing the toes. Same thing if we're doing like a lying, side lying leg lift or something like that, the toes are pointed. Even when we're on our bellies, let me scoot back so you can see me, or if we are crawling, I see a tuck toe here so much, and this is just not cute. We want to make sure that our toes are pointed down, and that even if we are doing these cute little cat crawls, our toes are pointed, okay? Kind of odd places to think about, but it's really game-changing for your dancing. And then if we came down into this little move that we do a lot with our left leg hiked up in front, my toes are pointed. If my toes are flexed, it gives it like this weird look. It's very awkward and also doesn't feel good. So pointing the toes, even in these moments, if we press back, with the booty, keeping that top of mind is going to make your dancing look so much better. It's also going to feel better as well. It just really cleans everything up nicely. So tip number 6 is a quick one, but it's game changing. And I actually heard this at one of the most recent classes that I took. I'm really just spilling all of my tips for you babes today because even though it's a lot of information, you can take these things and really implement them slowly and gradually. But anyway, so I heard this tip at a class and she was saying, always be slightly behind the music. And I was like, wow, that really changes my perspective because I've always been someone that's ahead of the music. And so many of us tend to rush it because we want to get to the next thing. We want to make sure that we remember the choreo, etc. But if we can slow down and be even slightly behind the music, it's gonna actually be on time. And that's how ahead that we tend to be. We tend to rush those movements so fast. And instead, if you hear it in your mind, like, okay, I need to go to this next step, wait a second before you hit that pose, or wait a second before you drop, or wait a second before you hair whip. Have a little pause, a little breath before you continue forward into the music. So if you're implementing this, let's say you take one of my classes, go ahead and take that class with the intention that you're going to be slightly behind. Watch your video and see if you're actually behind or if it actually puts you on time with the music. Taking your time as much as possible in every single move, especially when it's really fast, is not only going to make it look better, but it's going to make it feel so much less chaotic. Because a lot of times we're like, wow, this is so fast, this routine is so fast. But it's really because we're just rushing the movements and we're not taking our time. We're not holding in those poses before we do that little quick moment. Instead, we're like, oh, I gotta get to the next move, and it's just fast and it's chaotic. So be behind the music and I promise it will look so much better. So my 7th tip for you is going to be something that's actually a little bit more of a cross-training tip, but it's all about hip and leg flexibility. So especially in burlesque and heels, we are using our hips and our legs and our flexibility a lot, which means that if you have a hard time getting into certain moves, so let's say you are trying to get something like a type of split, or you are trying to be able to spread your legs a little bit further apart for these hair whips and stuff that we do. The only thing that's going to help you do that is to work on that flexibility. So if you're focusing on this tip, dedicate, 20 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day even, to working on your flexibility. It's going to feel so much better, especially floor work, when you are working on your flexibility. So let's say that you are in this like little moment here, and we would normally come down into this little, booty pop situation. Instead, you want to extend the leg out and come down into a little split. You can only do that if you have a certain range of motion. Same thing if we are doing like a little opening like this, where we hair whip around, boom. This is gonna feel so tight in your body. You're gonna be like crunched forward if you're not flexible in the hips. But if you're flexible in the hips, you're really able to open up those legs a little bit wider. You're able to keep your chest lifted versus feeling like you have to concave. And then this like little looks so much better. And then if we did a hair whip here, it looks so much better versus here. Yeah? We want to be up, we want to be lifted, and we want to feel okay with rotating those thighs out, okay? So it's a cross-training thing. It's not going to come overnight, but I definitely have a lot of videos on my YouTube channel, and I can put some here for you babes later on in the membership. That way you can start to really focus and concentrate on that hip and thigh flexibility. And also it's going to just give you a deeper range of motion in your dancing in general. It's not just going to be about these like fancy floor work poses, but it's really going to be about just helping you find ease in every single movement. So my next tip is also a little floor work tip, and that is going to be lifting up and out of the floor instead of crunching your weight down. So a lot of times what I see with dancers, especially in floor work, we get on the floor and we're like crunched up with the ear to the shoulder blade, and we're hunched over and we're just like trying to make it through. But instead, and this again comes like with a little bit of cross training, because the more you're working on strength in your upper body, and my favorite way to do that is through yoga and Pilates, really focusing on lifting up and out instead of crunching. Yeah, so you see the difference? I'm lifted, I'm crunching. Yeah, I'm lifted, and I'm pressing away from the floor, or my elbows are bent and I'm just kind of like hanging there on for dear life. So come onto your side with me and feel the difference. I want you to feel the difference between this and lifting. So let's say we are doing, and this is honestly one of the best places to practice this, is when we lift that leg up. We do this a lot in my classes, and I'm lifting the booty up off of the floor, but I'm using that press out of the floor, lifting the shoulders back and down, and that helps me to get that leg up. If I'm not using that, this is what this looks like. It is so different, okay? But if I'm pressing up and out of the floor, and I'm using my upper body, in this case specifically, to lift my booty off the ground, that leg just goes up and over. So much easier, okay? So really pressing out of the floor, making sure that you're maintaining your posture, even in these floor moments, is so, so important. So my 9th tip for you babes is fluidity, okay? So many times I see dancers posing their way through a combo. And you know what I'm talking about because we've all done it, where it's just like, okay, move, okay, step, lift, step, turn, arms out, turn. It's like very robotic. Instead, if I let each move kind of bleed into the next move, it looks so much more like you're dancing versus you're posing and moving, okay? So finding fluidity in between the poses, okay? So finding a way to connect everything together, that way it looks very seamless and very effortless versus looking like, okay, now she's doing another pose and now she's doing another pose. So taking that tiny pause in between movements. So let's say I was bringing my arms up, around, I was going back, bevel. I didn't have any like pauses that were in an awkward space, or I didn't have any moments where nothing was happening. Even if I'm in a pose, usually there's something happening. My hands are moving, my eyes are looking up and down. I'm always moving. Even in the poses, there's always something happening. So keep that throughout your dancing, keep that fluidity, and kind of make it, instead of a posing experience, make it more about a fluid, moving dance, okay? And then, of course, I can't give you 10 tips for better dancing without talking about confidence, okay? So confidence to me is the most important key to leveling up your dancing, because if you are confident in what you're doing, if you know that you are fully capable of doing a certain move, or you've practiced something a lot and you feel really good about it, that confidence comes through in how your dancing looks. I'm telling you, I wouldn't have called my program Confidence if it wasn't for this concept, because if you don't believe what you're doing, nobody else will. So if you're doing a dance, if you're doing an intermediate dance, or if you're doing an advanced dance, and you don't believe that you can do those moves, or you don't believe that you can keep up with the pace, that's going to affect every single movement that you do. Even if you know how to do it, it's still going to come through across in your dancing, in your performance, that you don't know what's going on. So do you believe in what you're doing? Are you consistent enough in your practicing that you feel capable of trying new moves and it looking good? Or you feel like you have some trouble with certain steps or certain positions or certain technique? Practice those, because practice creates confidence. And also, any work that you do on your confidence, tapping, meditation, that kind of thing, it's going to shine through in your dancing as well. So creating that confidence for yourself, whether it's through practice or through your energy when you're dancing, it will be the #1 way to see these up levels and these shifts in your dancing and in your technique. So there you have it, my love, 10 ways to level up your dancing. I hope this video will support you in your future classes and in your training. And this is one of those videos that I want you to pull from consistently. So your homework for this video is going to pick one thing that you're going to focus on for the next week in your dancing. Comment that thing in the Heart Centered Heels community, share it with us, let us know what you're working on, and then each week or every 2 weeks or every month you can pick a new focus, okay? But I promise if you focus on these 10 things without anything else changing in your dancing is going to look completely different in a few months. So I believe in you. You've got this. Let me know if you have any comments or questions below, and I will see you in the next class.